So for this tutorial, I thought it'd be cool to show you guys how to do sort of photorealism using Illustrator. For this example, I'm just going to show you something simple, show you an apple, but you could, I have done an entire room, and even though it took, over 40 hours, it was really amazing, the finished piece. So the first thing we're going to do is, I just have an 8.5 by 11 page open, a new file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place an apple image. And so I have an image here. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And then what I'm going to do is I want my layers panel open. It's normally in the side over here. If it's not, you can go to Window, Layers. You'll see it's down here. So I have it open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this layer. I'm going to click on Template right here and then say OK. And then I'm going to add a layer on top. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my pen tool and then just draw around the outside of the apple. And you don't have to be incredibly exact. I mean, it's an apple, so if you're a little bit off, it's not going to, look like a pear or something. And the pen tool is probably difficult to use if you haven't used it before, but once you get to know how to use the pen tool, Illustrator is a really fairly easy program. So it's got a white fill right now in black stroke, but that's fine. I'm just going to leave it like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line from here to here. I could not get that right. So it looks like I'm going to have to draw another vector point, anchor point. And so right now it's got a fill, but we're just gonna leave that over here. That's fine. So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing each component. And you can easily delete a previous an anchor point if you place it wrong just by saying Command Z if you're on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it would probably be Control Z? Actually, I'm not sure. Well, whatever the undo button is on your PC. So there's the stem. And you can switch between tools really easily in Illustrator. Pen tool is P, so if I press P, it turns into the pen. V is the selection tool, and I'm using that to move the pieces out of the way. So let's say I've got the main components down, the main shapes. So something else I like to do is I like to use the pencil tool to do these little fine details. But the thing about the pencil tool is if you draw with it, but then you try to draw right here. Oh, well, let's say you try to draw here. It's not doing what I thought it was going to do. Well, this should work then. So I'm just going to go through and go over these lines right here. And these are all like the little marks on the apple. This will make it look more realistic if we can get these details in. Because apples normally aren't perfect and shiny. And the reason I like to use the pencil tool for this is because imagine if you're using the pen tool, it would take a lot longer. I just want to quickly scribble these in, and I don't necessarily want them really perfect looking because this is an apple and stuff, and sometimes nature isn't so perfect. So we want it to kind of be regular, but also, purposeful too. You don't have to put in all the details, but I would guess that sort of the more little details you put in, the better it will look. Okay, I think that should be good for now. So I'm just going to take all these and move them over here. And I need to be careful about, I'm not going to group them. Well, you could group them if you're afraid of deleting some or moving some, but you do need to be a little bit careful about keeping them all in the same spot, because what I'm going to do later is I'm actually going to bring them back over here and set them on top of all of these so that everything lines up. So I think we have enough stuff drawn in here in order to start putting color in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to option drag this, and this will make a copy. So this is going to be my base, basically apple layer. And I want this to be mostly the color of the apple. So if I use my color picker, so I think it's sampling the lightened template layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this layer, unclick template, and say OK. So now if I sample it, see how the color's a lot better. So that's what I want. And I don't want a stroke, I just want the fill, so that looks good. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to put this shine onto the apple, and there's also some color back here, some here, so there's some different colors through here. We want to be able to put that onto our apple. So there's different ways you could do it. You could do a bunch of overlays. I could copy this and then do a bunch of gradients that I layered on top so that there'd be one here, one here. But another way that I like to do, and this does actually rasterize your object when you do it, so make sure to always make copies, because once you do it, you can't go back and edit it. So it's called the mesh tool. So we're on the panel over here. So if you click on the mesh tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right here. That's where the shine is. And if I go and choose white from my palette, oh, that actually is way too, puts way too much white in there. It looks cool, but it's not quite what I'm looking for. So I'm actually going to undo that. Let's think about this. I think I'm going to try putting this color up on the top. So I'm going to click, I'm going to undo, so I take out that point. I'm going to click up here, and I am going to use the color picker. The color picker shortcut is I. And so you do notice that it puts it all in there, that color, and I only want it kind of up there. So what we can do is that I'm going to click here, but then put in the red color from the apple and see how the color ends up being stuck just in this quadrant up here, because basically this being red makes it red all along here, so it stops it. So I'm just going to continue putting in some colors, just some lighter colors around here. So just sort of click where you want the color. So I'm clicking here, and then I'm sampling here. Let's see, the mesh tool shortcut is U, so that's a good tip. So if I can switch between the color picker and then the mesh tool. And let's see, you can put it like a darker, let's see if this one's, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool, the darker color. Maybe put in the lighter color. And let's see, you'll notice that I sort of want the color here too, but it didn't put it there. That's fine, just go back and put it in. Okay, you might think that doesn't look quite, that doesn't look like an apple yet, but it will when we start layering everything. So let's see, the next thing we want to do is remember this section right here. So layer it back down on top right here. Put the big apple shape back on there. And so, oops, that's right, my template is not a template anymore. So what I'm going to do is select both of these and move them over here. I did this because I wanted this little indent spot in the right section of my apple. So what I'm going to do is I want this to be, I don't want a stroke, but I want a fill, and I want a gradient fill. So if you go, so open your gradient panel. It's normally on the side over here. If it's not, go to Window Gradient, or it might be, yeah, Gradient. So it's its own panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and click Gradient. I'm going to say Radial, and I want the black in the middle, but also I don't want this white. I want this black also. But then what we want to do is make this black, but then this opacity right here on the bottom, make it 0. And so what we want to do is, this doesn't look quite right. I don't want this to look like this. I'm going to turn off the stroke. So click on the stroke, turn it off. So now we just have this gradient fill in there. I want to adjust the gradient. So I'm going to select my gradient tool over on my panel. Gradient tool, or shortcut's G. So I'm going to go back over to my apple. Huh, wonder why that's not working. Oh, okay. Make sure that you have your fill selected. I had my stroke selected, and I don't have a stroke, so it wouldn't let me use the gradient tool. So make sure my fill that has the gradient is selected over here. So I'm just going to move this down here. And if you move this out, you'll realize the black expands out of the middle. But then this looks also odd right here. So what I'm going to do is that I want to add some more pen tool points. So if you go and get the pen tool and you can just click on an existing point, and then it'll let you continue. And I'm just sort of going to go in a circle like that. This looks a little odd though. I'm wondering if this color on here is black. I'm going to drag over the black. Oops. So let's see. This should work. Let's try this again. I'm just gonna click here. It looks like black. I'm kind of wondering because it looks a little grayish in between here. But that might just because it's transparent black. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna edit my gradient again. I'm gonna drag it a little bit here. Let's see. I want this right on the edge to sort of fade into the apple. So let's see. And I'm just going to bring down the whole opacity of this. So if you bring up your appearance panel and you say opacity, I'm going to say we can just click on the fill opacity and just make it a little less dark. Okay. I'm gonna put it about 88. Okay. So we have that part. So let's see about getting the stem in here. We can go back and edit the stem a little bit. We want the edge of the stem right here to follow the edge of this part. But let's do the color on the stem. So use your color picker and choose the color. And it doesn't have a fill. That's good. But you'll notice that our stem looks really flat and it doesn't really even show up very well against this color. So I'm going to actually make the stem a gradient. So go over to your gradient panel and see how our fill has this brown. You can actually just drag that brown color down here. And I'll just take that out. And if you hold down Option, you can copy the colors on here. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to make one of them a bit darker. Let's see. And then I'm going to do a linear gradient, and we can adjust this. Let's see. Oh, yeah, yes. So what we want to do is pull this color over here. Take that one out, and then the dark one, we want the dark one repeated on both sides of the gradient. This is so it looks dark on both sides. It's almost like if you're making doing a cylinder mock-up or something, you want it to look a bit 3D. Let's see. And so if you just adjust your gradient slightly, see how the stem has a lot more depth to it. And the last little detail we can add for the stem, see this little part where the stem broke? We can just add a little quick circle there. So let's see, I'm going to grab the circle, the ellipse tool, just zoom up on here. Let's see. So I don't want to move that. And then just turn this. Make it a little bigger. Sort of move this. You don't have to be perfect. This won't show up a lot, so if you're not perfect, that's fine. I'm just going to go back in and make a gradient. Actually, yeah, that looks fine, so I'm just going to zoom out. See, the stem looks pretty good. It looks, I mean, this picture's not highest res, so it doesn't look exactly like that, but that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back now and we're going to, oops, I keep forgetting that's not a template. We're going to go back through and grab all these. So grab all these and I'm going to set them back on top of where I drew them in at. It's about there. Let's see. And these are kind of, I'm going to go maybe make this I'm going to lock this layer. You can do that too instead of making a template if you want the full color. Template just fades your layer a little bit so you can see your lines a bit better. So I'm going to go in and change the color of all these ones. These are all sort of a yellowy color. Let's see. Oh, missed them over here. Okay, I got all those ones. So I'm going to make these color. I'm going to sample right here. There we go. But I don't want the fill that color. I want the stroke that color. So if you go over here and switch them. And then I'm going to go in here. And these were, I'm going to move them out of the way a little bit. So let's move these. And I'm going to sample. And then remember, it does the fill, so just swap it. I'm going to move these back onto my apple. Okay, so then all these lines right now are really thin. I want them thicker. So let's try, let's see, let's do maybe 3. And I want this, see, right now it says uniform. I want it to look like this. I want it to be thin where it starts and ends. But then I want to show you something. So I'm going to group all these. Okay. Oh, that was one I forgot, but that's fine. Just delete it. Move this back onto here. Oops, move that. Move it back. So you'll notice that right now this doesn't look real. I mean, these are too sharp, and we don't want it to look like that. We want this to look really realistic. So I grouped them all. So what we can do is open our appearance panel. So appearances, and you'll notice right here there's a little thing that says effects. So we want to go down to blur, and I'm going to say Gaussian blur. Click on preview. And I want to blur this just enough so that the edges are soft. So let's try that. So that looks a bit better. So let's move this whole thing out of the way and then figure out what other details we need to add. Okay. So it looks like we might need to add some color here, some color here. So what I'm going to do is, this is pretty a simple way to do this. So I'm going to use my blob brush tool and then just draw in. And this might look really rough, but we can do the same thing where we can blur it a little bit. Let's see. I guess that should be okay for now. So I'm going to take this, just group it. I'm going to sample the color here. And then I'm going to go and blur it. I might probably bring down the opacity of it a bit. So blur, Gaussian blur, preview. Let's see. Oh, that's too blurred. So let's say okay. Let's move this back onto the spot where it should be. Move this back onto here. And let's see, I want this and this above that. So I'm just going to say object, arrange, bring to front. Actually, yeah, that looks pretty good. I was thinking I might have to make it a bit transparent, but it looks pretty good like that. Move it up a little bit. Okay, I think that looks good. I like what that looks like. So I'm going to move this out of the way. We still need to do this white shine right here. So remember how I have my original apple shape? So just option drag it again. It's good to always have copies because we're going to do a couple layers to make this apple look as realistic as possible. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give this no fill and no stroke. So it looks like it's gone when I do that, but it's still here. See, what I'm going to do is I'm going to option drag this and then resize it. So if you hold down shift and do the corner, I'm going to resize it to, let's see, a fairly small size. Let's see. I'm actually going to put a stroke on these so I can see them. It's making it a bit difficult. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, lining up the apple shape to the original apple. Move this here. This is going to be our shine. We're going to do a blend in case you were wondering. So I'm going to give this a white fill. So just fill it white. This is going to be no stroke, no fill. And then what we're going to do is blend tool. And I want to make sure that the option, so it says smooth color, that's good. I want smooth color. So we can just click on here, and then where that is, see the plus sign, click here. Whoa, that did not do what I thought it was going to do. Click on here, smooth color. Huh, I'm not sure why that didn't quite work. Let's see. Let's go to object. Let's see, fills on here. Where is it? Oh, object blend, that's what I meant, not fill. So make. That is not doing the smooth blend like I thought it was going to do. It could be that they both have to be solid shapes. If that's the case, let's give this fill, let's just make it, well actually let's try to make it this color. Let's just go over here and sample that. So let's just make it red. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down the opacity of this down to 0. So we want to go to our appearance panel, fill, opacity, 0. Okay, so let's see if this works now. So object, blend, make. That is still not working like it should. I'm not sure why that's happening. I'm going to try bringing the opacity of this back. Let's see. Let's bring this back up to 100 and then see if we can get this to work. Normally this kind of stuff works okay for me, so I am not sure what's going on. So take your blend tool, click on the edge here. Click on the edge here. Oh, I guess I didn't have my blend tool selected, so let's try this again. So blend tool, so edge. Huh, let's see this. Is that working? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with this. I'm really not. It's a bit weird, so let's do this a different way. Okay, let's just get rid of this little circle here. So what I'm going to do is make this red transparent. Let's see how we can do this. You know what I'm going to do? Let's just do a completely different thing. So I'm just going to draw a circle here. I'm going to give it a white fill. No stroke, just white fill. I'm going to go to the effects panel and I'm going to say blur, Gaussian blur, preview, and we're going to blur this. Let's see. Actually, that looks about good, so let's blur it there. And then we're going to put it looks like it's about there. And so that's an easy way to get around that because I was having some issues and that is not worth the time it was taking. So I'm just going to put another one here. We're going to put this pretty transparent because it was pretty, it wasn't that apparent. So yes, opacity, right now it's 100. We want it down to like, let's try 40. And bring it over here. Okay, that looks pretty decent. And one last thing that I do to make this whole thing kind of pull together. So right now I want to do no stroke, just a fill, but I'm going to do a gradient fill. So go back over here. And well, luckily, so we want the black on both sides of our gradient, but we want this one completely, you see the opacity 0. So I want the dark on the outside and then the completely transparent in the middle. Sort of drag this a bit. We want this subtle. So pull this out to here. And then I'm going to drag this over the top, but then you'll probably see it makes everything really dark. Oh, let's bring it to the front. Let's see, and then you notice that it makes everything really gray. We don't want it to look like that, so we're just going to bring down the opacity of it. So let's try... And there you go, you have an apple. And so if you turn it off, turn it on. I mean, it doesn't look exactly the same, but if you're trying to do something, you want a cool vector graphic and you want it to look... as realistic as possible, and you didn't want to do it in Photoshop, be assured that if you're not a talented Photoshop person, you can do this in Illustrator. So thanks for listening to this tutorial. Leave any comments or questions if you have them. Thank you.